a DevOps success story with John Campbell.
The Azure DevOps Podcast is a show for developers and DevOps professionals shipping software using Microsoft technologies. Each show brings you hard-hitting interviews with industry experts, innovating better methods, and sharing success stories. Listen on to learn how to increase quality, ship quickly, and operate well. And now your host, Jeffrey Palermo.
Welcome back to the show. I'm Jeffrey Palermo, your humble host, and make sure to check out www.azuredevops.show for past episodes and show notes. And let's get right into the show after just a quick spot about our January .NET DevOps Bootcamp training. Jump into the show notes if you'd like information on that. But John Campbell is here with me today, and he is a solutions architect with Anaqua, and he's been in the industry for more than 20 years, starting as a developer, and he now enables his team with DevOps capabilities, and they've achieved a tremendous level of success there, and he's there to share all the things that they did. John, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Oh, thank you, Jeff, for having me. It's great to be here.
Yeah, I'm really excited to kind of dig in and share this story because all of the listeners are going through this journey that you've just been through. But can you give us the overview? You know, what does Anaqua do, and how did you find yourself in the spot where you were even thinking about this problem space because you've been in the development industry for so long?
So Anaqua is a company makes software. Principally, it's software around patent management. It's used by a lot of law firms and large companies to manage their work. So it's really an important piece of software, but can get very, very complex, and there can be a lot of moving pieces to it. Many years ago when I joined, we were kind of in a place where the application needed a lot of work to get out in terms of how we built it, how we deployed it, how we tested it internally. All of those things were required a whole lot. And as I had said to you after watching your .NET Conf talk, like a lot of people out there, I found myself in this position of trying to run around and manage servers, and this one isn't deploying right. Oh, did you remember to turn this on? Oh, I didn't. And all of those sorts of things were happening. We at one point when I started had a situation where if a build didn't work because it was a scheduled task, there was one or two people on the planet who could go in and start it again.
Oh, wow.
And even though we were, we're an international company with offices all over the world, there were really only one or two people entrusted with those keys. So if things didn't work and the build didn't happen, we were stuck until one of the special people showed up and could get in. And so that sort of thing is what inspired me to start looking more and more into TFS at the time, and now Azure DevOps, to make it so that it was a bit more open, because it didn't make any sense for people in one location to be the only people who could start builds when I've got people who are in India while I'm sleeping who are just as capable of starting a build as anyone else. They just weren't allowed to.
Got it. And give us a scale, an idea of the scale of this organization. How many people, how many locations, and how many servers, how many running processes are a part of this system?
So, worldwide, we've got about 5 offices in India, London, France, 2 in the United States. It's less than 300 people. I'm not sure on the exact number. Unfortunately, it shifts, and I'm not always aware of all the hires. But for the most part, it's a little bit different. I say different from the world of where we're at now versus what I think a lot of people do. We're a web-based technology that has installs, so we're not a singular website. that everyone goes to, which makes continuous deployment difficult. It's not impossible, but it is difficult. But everyone, as you can imagine with patents, everyone wants their stuff very separated as much as possible. So sharing, let's all use the same web server. That doesn't fly,
Sure, gotcha.
Let's use the same database. Yeah, no, let's not do that. That's not a good idea, because the last thing you want is for anyone's information to accidentally leak to someone else. And if you don't have an isolated system, then you're always open to that possibility. So for all of our clients, we have individual setups for them and have an option for them to even be deployed on site, which again is, in this day and age, everyone just wants to talk about let's push to the website.
Sure.
It's very different from, hold on, I need to ship an install to Acme Corp so that their internal IT guys can install it.
Right. So you have multiple production environments essentially, and so you have a website. How many databases and data stores? How many headless offline processes? Just give us an idea for the general shape of this system.
So for the most part, it's just the one. Believe it or not, it is just the one database, just the one website. There are back-end processes that run, not a whole lot of them. But again, it's one of those things where the system isn't so much concerned about load. It doesn't have the Black Friday problem, right? But it does have a lot of data to churn through. So it's got to go through millions of records, but it doesn't have to go through millions of records with millions of people all at the same time. So our focus tends to be more on the back end and the database and those sorts of things, and optimizing those things rather than, oh my goodness, I need 40 web servers and I need to scale out as needed, because who knows what's going to happen load wise. Relatively speaking, the load is pretty low. Those people are all very, very important, but the load is low.
So fast forward to today, what is the experience like when you need to make a change, and how fast have you been able to get that cycle time?
So we've gotten that. Yeah. So a lot of what I've done is around using Azure DevOps capabilities to increase how we develop and deploy. So the first step was when we need to make a build, we do like a daily build, we make sure that we get everything compiled, and our compile time is still pretty long. It's about 5 hours just to do like a full build of the system. But what has been automated away is the deployment of that build to a bunch of different environments. Initially, we really were kind of bound by manual and human processes where a build would get started, it would take as long as it took, and we had someone sitting and waiting for it to be done. And sometimes if the build started at 8:00 at night, there were people waiting until 2 a.m, crossing their fingers and hoping it worked.
Yeah.
And then as soon as it was done, doing the install, well, I thought that was kind of crazy. So I automated that away. So the first step was, let's automate that away and have these deployments happen automatically. As soon as the build's done, just push it out. From there, once you've kind of established you can push that out, it's not much of a stretch to say, well, can I make it go to 2 servers, 3 servers, 4 servers, different configurations? Some of our clients like to have this thing on. Some of these clients like to have these other things on, and they're mutually exclusive. You can't do both. So therefore, we can have different environments with different configurations. And again, with the stuff in Azure DevOps really allowed for that to happen. There were a lot of little steps, but having that ability where it's just you click a button and off it goes was great. And so after getting that all established, the really cool thing to do was, and that I'm really proud of, was to figure out a automated UI test, a whole suite on that.
Oh yeah.
So I know like a lot of people love to have those that testing pyramid where everyone has all sorts of unit tests, and those are the base of the pyramid, and then you have the integration tests, and then UI tests at the top. I know that's the model, but that's not the reality for most people, I think.
Now, how many years did this system go without any kind of automated tests?
About 10 to 15 years.
Yeah. And so for legacy systems, yeah, that's the testing pyramid is kind of inverted. You have to start at the full system test just to get any kind of coverage.
Right. So, you can have these unit tests, and, most developers groan about having to do unit tests. They shouldn't, but they do. And so it always seems to focus on or fall to the QA team to find some way to do things. And even with unit tests, you can have the best unit tests in the world. One of the hard parts is they test an individual unit, but you don't see what the overall impact is of that one piece on the whole system. You can kind of go, well, my little piece worked. It's like, well, yeah, but now that you set this flag on, these 5 other things are broken. Did you test the other flags? Well, no, because I did a unit test that it's testing to see if I could turn this on or off. Not, should I? That's different. So having that ability to do those UI tests and really check in on the system has really made us a lot more efficient. And Jeff, I think in your talk, you talked about doing screen captures during the tests that you run.
At the .NET Conf talk?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes.
Because when they break, how do you know how quickly can you get to the source when one of those tests fails? That's the question.
Right. And I've taken it a little bit of a step further, again, using the built-in capabilities, which is the video recording, right? So I have video recordings of all of our tests that run every day. And when something breaks, the first thing that QA does is they look at the video and they go, oh, maybe we forgot to do something in the test, because sometimes that happens. Other times it's a bug. And the first thing they do is they file a bug, they attach the video to it and send it back to the developer, which immediately eliminates that whole, well, I didn't see it happen, so I don't know what you did. Right. And that whole conversation's gone. Watch the tape.
Right.
Like here you see it, and
just a point of clarification, for the listeners out there, a tape is a magnetic medium that used to store data back when we were beginning our careers, but now it's just solid state storage. But John, let's continue.
Wow. Well, I said I'd been in this industry for 20 years, right? So. Back when I was riding a Mastodon to school, uphill both ways in the snow, we had tapes.
Well, I had to find a portable, battery operated cassette player for my kids, just so that they could listen to some children's cassette tapes that my wife had saved from her child. Actually, my mother-in-law had saved from my wife's childhood.
Oh my goodness! That is one of the more fascinating parts about technology. So weird aside, I am I'm not only in technology, but I'm also a Freemason. So start you Illuminati stuff now. But one of the things that was interesting is I talked about preserving records, and we looked at things. We looked at all the digital stuff, and we had a guy come up, and he had a 3 1/4, 5 5.5, or no, 5 1/4, 3 1/2, a CD, a DVD, a zip drive, and he said, "Okay, who knows what these are, and who can read any of these things today?"
Right.
And the answer was no. It's like, then he holds up a sheet of paper. Who can read this? And then it was, even you go back into some of the stuff where there are books that are 800, 1,000 years old that are out there that are still as legible as they were when they were written, which is crazy, but we can still read them, and it's just a old sheet of paper.
Right. But your technique for recording video to help out with kind of defect root cause, or at least repro steps, that's a great technique. Now, just how hard was it to set up in order to get that capability?
Actually, it was really, really easy. Inside, if you create a test, there is a test runner settings, and all you have to do is enable that and tell it, okay, yeah, I want to do video recording. The caveat, of course, is it's only available if you have the machine running the test with Visual Studio 2017.5, I think.
Oh, not 2019.
Well, or above.
Or above, okay, but not Mac and not Linux agents.
No, I don't believe that would work. And actually, it's one of the things that I struggle with a little bit around the tests is things like headless browsers. We all know that headless browsers would be faster and react better, but they don't produce a video. They either work or they didn't.
Right.
So when it fails, what do you do?
And they're just a little different.
Right. And it's like, okay, well, I couldn't, because I've certainly had situations where the screen just didn't work. And, sure, I can look at an HTML output and go, oh, well, here's the screen not working. But it's tough to show somebody this is the screen not working, and this is how I got the screen to not work.
Right.
So, I've been looking at headless browsers as a way to speed things up, but at the same time, I don't know that they're great in terms of accomplishing the goal I really want, which is to get people information so they can fix the problem.
The Azure DevOps Podcast is sponsored by ClearMeasure, a software engineering firm and Microsoft Gold partner, empowering development teams to be their best. ClearMeasure equips developers with the DevOps tools, methods, and automation necessary to focus on building their applications, rather than wrestling with builds, deployments, or environments. Click clear-measure.com to see whether a DevOps implementation is for you.
Let's get through some announcements. The .NET DevOps Bootcamp training course, another date was announced for the course. We had a fantastic class in October, and next class will be January 16th and 17th in Austin, Texas. And this class is based on my latest book published through A Press, which you've heard about, .NET DevOps for Azure. And if you'd like to learn more about how to set up that high throughput DevOps environment for your team, get the copy of the book, .NET DevOps for Azure, anywhere tech books are sold. Also, as many of you know, I'm available for hire. I love helping teams get better. And one of our very popular services is a 30-point DevOps inspection covering everything from your version control structure through builds, testing, quality control steps, to deployments, and even production monitoring. And between now and Christmas, we are giving away a few of these for free. Now, the price for this is $5,000, and we provide a comprehensive report with concrete recommendations and a plan for resolving any gaps we see. So send me an email at jeffrey@clear-measure.com. That's JEFFREY. And once the promotion schedule is full, that's it. We're full. But if you're a regular subscriber, then you have a good chance of getting one of these promotional inspections. So send me an email, and until that promotion schedule is full, we'll give you a free 30-point DevOps inspection that we normally charge $5,000 for as a special promotion between now and Christmas. So I'll be looking out for those emails. And now back to the show. Well, Phantom.js was a popular headless browser, but then people realized, well, it's so many issues with it, and then it stopped being maintained, and there just wasn't enough demand. So I think most people are just going back to a Chromium, or then there's Firefox, the ones that Selenium supports well.
Oh goodness, yeah, we are super, super happy about the move from Microsoft to get off of their own rendering thing and moved Edge over to Chromium.
Yeah, the Edgeium browser.
Yeah, so now we don't have to worry about, well, it works slightly different between Chrome and Edge and Firefox, although we do still have differences with Firefox that we do have to test for.
Right.
And you've got to test those things because that's what your clients use, right? It's sometimes tough, especially if you're somebody who supplies software for very large corporations. It's very tough to say to them, hey, don't use that browser, because oftentimes they don't have a choice, right?
Absolutely. So your story is one of a software system that had been developed for 15 years, a monolithic architecture where it's deployed as a website and a SQL Server database, and now you've gotten to the point where deploying is no big deal. Talk a little bit about how the database, because it's got to be a large and complicated database after all these years.
Yeah, it is. It is a very large and complicated database. Like most people in this deployment world, the database is the problem child. The how do we do deployments to that, and we have kind of our own unique way of doing it, which involves GUIDs and sort of a pre-run type of thing. So if we have changes, we check to see, hey, has this already been run? Yes, it has. Don't run it again. The issue with that, unfortunately, is if you have a system where you are doing multiple deployments to it and you're trying to tweak something that's already been deployed, you can't. You either have to come up with a new GUID so it thinks it's a new thing, or a new file, or you have to wipe out the entry. So it's not the best way of doing it, but I haven't been able to devote time into looking into things like DAC packs, which would really do what we want, to look at the desired state of the data and the database and say, I want it to be this way. And I don't care if you're on version 1 of the software or version 12 of the software, I'm going to figure it out for you. I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of companies are like this. If you're on version 1 and you want to get to version 12, you got to run version 2, version 3, version 4, version 5, et cetera, et cetera. You got to go through all of those updates before you can get to version 20.
Yep.
And I think, one of the things that's definitely a message for people is you see all of these amazing things that are being done and you think, I can't possibly do this. And the reality is you can. It's just a matter of breaking everything down into small enough bites that you go, okay, I can make this little piece better. And then the next little piece, and on and on. And definitely don't get discouraged, because it is a long road, but take your time and work on a little bit at a time and take the small victories where you can.
Mm-hmm. Now, you still have a lengthy integration build. Would you mind sharing what all steps need to happen for you to go from raw source code to a deployable artifact? And the reason why it still takes too long, and what all the critical steps are that's important for your system.
So for this particular system, there's a lot of dependencies. So you wind up with some things that were done to help everybody out, but wind up causing a real hard dependency. So a good example is enumerated values. Let's take a list of states, right? Pretty constant, right? And it's the sort of thing that you'd put into a database, right? Because a customer has they live in a state, and that sort of thing goes in there. And then you want to have an enum that's inside of your code that references the same values, right? So what had been done in the past was an automatic generation of enumerated values based upon what's in the database to then be compiled inside of the application.
Ah, okay.
Right?
Gotcha.
So basically, it's
dynamic
neat.
code.
Right. So it dynamically generates it. Now, obviously, the list of states isn't changing all that much, but we have other enumerations that do change on a more regular basis.
Sure.
And so you didn't ever want to get into this situation where your coded enum and your database values were out of sync, right? Because it's entirely possible. Those two don't necessarily have anything to do with each other. There's no way of enforcing that. You're not going to get a compile time error on that, right? You're just going to have all sorts of stuff where, I put in ID 7 and that turns out to be Texas when I thought it was Oklahoma.
Sure.
Oops.
Right.
That's not good. So we have things like that in the system where what had been done is people were taught, put the values into the database first, and everything will flow out from there. But that, of course, introduces a coupling where in order to build the software with the generated enum, you've got to put everything in the database first.
Which means you have to have a database.
Which means you have to have a database, which means you have to, have a proper insert statement or update statement to make those changes. So it isn't just, let's compile the code. It's, hold on, I need to get the database up and running. I need to deploy any updates to any values. Okay, now I need to generate the enums which are going to be used, and now you can compile.
Gotcha. You have a pre-compiler step that a lot of applications don't have.
Right. It's a pre-compiler step, and it is kind of a point of debate. Is it worth having to do that step every single time? Because not every code change involves that. So where do you, the saying is, or sort of the joke, how does a mouse eat an elephant? One bite at a time, right? So, okay, which bite am I going to take?
Right.
And it's trying to figure out which, I can take this little nibble over here or this little nibble over there. And that's sort of the approach you have to take is, you see that these things are coupled together and go, all right, well, can I break this apart a little bit? A little bit. Because, again, when you have a piece of software that isn't greenfield, and again, I think that's a lot of people out there.
Oh, absolutely.
There's so many interconnected pieces that got there long before you did, and were done by people who have left long before you got there. And so you can't ask them, like, what were you thinking? Because they're gone. And so you just kind of go, all right, well, how can we work with this? And I'm sure that those people whoever they were when they made the decisions at the time, it was the best that they could do. They thought this was the best idea, and they had all the right intentions. It's just the world changed since that decision was made. There were times when these things worked and it was okay, and then it's like, in this world, maybe we don't need to do that anymore.
Yeah. So it sounds like if you're going to make a change that you knew exactly what to do, you could begin on it and have it deployed out to production, the next day? What's your current cycle, you think, for an easy change where it's really clear what to do?
Our cycle in terms of that to actual customer using it is nowhere near that fast. Available definitely within a day. Available, QA'd, and could be out there definitely within a day. Our clients, as I said earlier, they're managing patent stuff. They're lawyers. They're very cautious.
Yeah. Well, okay. So their business cycle, they want to plan for it. But from a technology perspective, if they said, oh yeah, if you can get it out to us tomorrow, then you'd be able to do it for
we can absolutely do that these days. We obviously, our customers are the most important part of our business, and working with them and making sure that they're happy are what we always want. But if they said, we totally want this turned around as quick as possible, okay, we can probably make that happen.
Yeah.
We don't have to spend super long times working on anything. We're now in a position where we're more capable of doing that than we ever were in the past. But again, our clients aren't demanding it, which does allow us a little bit more time. But if we really need to, we totally can.
What I find so frequently is that the organization, they just need the technology to be able to keep up with the pace of business. And so it sounds like you are.
Yeah. And again, one of the other things that is a little bit of a challenge is with the technology. It's great technology, but for a lot of people, it's tough to compete with armies of interns that are law students that will do all software is great, but at the end of the day, it's not as smart as 100 people that graduated from Harvard.
Yeah.
Right. And if you can get 100 people that graduated from Harvard to do most of your job, well, yeah, that's fantastic. They're much better than software, but there are only so many people from Harvard.
Interesting. Well, what's next? What's your next goal here on this journey? Because I think the journey to excellence is never finished.
Oh no, it never is. It's just a little piece at a time. So my next big steps are trying to, again, break down that build so that we're smaller, so that we can get feedback, sort of like a continuous integration type of feedback. You check in code, 5 minutes later, it was a good check-in or a bad check-in, because everyone forgets to check in files. That happens.
Oh yeah.
So getting that down so that I can get that feedback. Also looking into how to do deployments inside of containers. That's been a big thing that I'm trying to get to, not only for the cost savings benefits, but the ease of spinning up for comparison processes. Like, didn't that work last week? Oh, hold on. Let me bring up the container from last week and see. Oh, yeah, it did. Okay. Well, now that I can verify that it did work last week, I know somebody changed something. As opposed to don't you remember that meeting we had where, well, no, I don't remember really.
Right.
So I'm looking into that as something that I think is a way to make everyone's lives better. Just everything smaller, faster. You can do more with them, and yeah, they're the new hotness, but I think they have a lot of value.
Sure. And for your system, is it slowly transitioning to .NET Core, or is it going to stay on .NET Framework for some time to come?
So it is transitioning to .NET Core. The system is, again, it's old, so it's web forms. There's a movement to replace a lot of the front end stuff with Angular. So we've been doing a lot of work around that. Obviously, that's not .NET Core, but our back-end systems, we're transitioning those from WCF to .NET Core.
Okay.
To take advantage of a lot of the different things that are happening there. And we're starting to look towards things like Linux as kind of an intermediate host for that service layer over a full Windows system.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, that's awesome. Hey, man, this has been a fascinating story. It's always great to get real life journeys, is what this is, and you've made tremendous progress so far. And there's so many teams out there that are struggling with a large code base that they inherited, maybe some architectural decisions that they wish that they could change quicker than they can, and might feel trapped and just need a little bit of encouragement that a step forward is a step forward, and it just builds and builds and builds, and to keep going and not quit.
Yes, there's definitely a lot of that out there. You can make it better. If you haven't seen it yet, watch Donovan Brown's talk on doing this sort of stuff in your lunch hour. If you think that you can't do any of this, you're not in a position, go out to the Azure portal. There's a free thing out there. It's not going to cost you anything. Just sign up. Use that, and you will be amazed at how that demonstrates the ability to go from code change check-in to deployed onto a website that you can access in 2 minutes, 3 minutes tops. And you may not fully understand when you're going through the steps what it's doing, but once you've got it, you can start taking it apart. I mean, it's like with so many things in life. It's you got to prove. Once you've seen that it's possible, you can start breaking it down and say, "Well, okay, what do I need to do? How do I get there?"
Yep, absolutely. Well, hey, John, thanks for coming on the show. This is great. I know that the listeners are probably their minds are going how they can apply some of these things and how they can think about it in their own situation. So I really appreciate it. And I think a lot of listeners are in the same boat that you are and you have been, and they're on the same journey.
I certainly hope everyone's inspired and get out there, do your thing. It'll be great. Trust me.
Fantastic. Well, thanks, John.
Well, thank you, Jeff.
And until next time, keep shipping.
You've been listening to the Azure DevOps Podcast, a show for developers and DevOps professionals shipping software using Microsoft technologies. Go to www.azuredevops.show for show notes and other episodes. On behalf of your host, Jeffrey Palermo, and our sponsors, thanks for listening, and may God bless you.